In December 2003, Joyce Vincent, a vibrant 38-year-old from North London, tragically passed away from an asthma attack. Her flat, usually alive with the sounds of her television, fell eerily silent. The TV continued to flicker, the mail piled up, and her rent was deducted automatically. Days turned into weeks and months without a soul noticing her absence. The constant noise from nearby children and the trash dumpsters muffled the disturbing smells from Joyce's apartment, masking the reality of her death. It wasn't until her bank account ran dry and her landlord sought eviction that the true extent of Joyce's isolation was uncovered. In January 2006, over 2 years after her death, bailiffs broke down the door, and what awaited them on the other side was nothing short of horrific. It was Joyce's skeletal remains. During that time, no one had come looking for her. No friends, no family, no colleagues. Her disappearance went unnoticed in a city bustling with life. Inside, the scene was both haunting and surreal. Joyce's apartment was a snapshot of her last moments. The TV remained on, its flickering light casting a ghostly glow over her decayed remains. Her possessions, once cherished, now lay untouched. Christmas presents remained wrapped and unopened, a stark contrast to the decaying environment. The room, filled with the eerie hum of the TV, stood as a silent witness to her tragic end. Her life and death was a haunting mystery left behind in the darkened corners of her apartment. The kitchen was cluttered with expired food, and the sink overflowed with forgotten dishes. The apartment was frozen in time, a grim testament to Joyce's abrupt and lonely end. As the full impact of Joyce Vincent's tragic end began to sink in, a comprehensive investigation was launched. What initially appeared as a solitary, mysterious death soon revealed itself to be a complex puzzle, with each piece adding to the eerie narrative of her final years. The investigation uncovered a series of unsettling details that painted a picture of Joyce's life during the period of her isolation. Detectives delved into her personal records, her social connections, and the few remaining traces of her interactions with the outside world. One of the most perplexing elements was the discovery of automatic bill payments. Joyce's financial affairs were managed meticulously, ensuring that her rent and utilities were paid regularly. This automation created an illusion of normalcy and masked the growing silence of her life. Her social media accounts, once active, had gone silent, reflecting her withdrawal from the world. Messages and friend requests went unanswered, and her last posts were dated years before her death. The digital silence was a haunting reflection of her physical isolation. Interviews with friends and acquaintances painted a picture of a woman who had become increasingly reclusive. Despite this, Joyce's absence was largely unnoticed, revealing a deep societal disconnect. Despite numerous tips and leads, many of which proved to be dead ends, the investigation struggled to find concrete answers. The combination of Joyce's meticulous financial arrangements and her voluntary isolation created a formidable challenge for detectives. The investigation into Joyce Vincent's death revealed a deeply unsettling reality, a life cut short and hidden behind a veil of normalcy and routine. As the pieces of her life were slowly assembled, the true scale of her isolation and the tragic end she faced became clearer. Media coverage of Joyce's story was intense and often sensationalized. Headlines screamed of the woman who vanished, and news reports detailed the eerie discovery of her lifeless body. The public was both fascinated and horrified by the details that emerged. The media's portrayal of Joyce's life and death painted a stark contrast between her past glamour and her tragic end. Interviews with former friends, neighbors, and acquaintances painted a picture of a woman who had been both vibrant and, tragically, increasingly isolated. Joyce Vincent was once a vibrant part of London's bustling city life. In the 1980s, she was the epitome of a city girl on the move. She held a high-flying job in finance, surrounded by an eclectic group of friends who remembered her fondly for her beauty, elegance, and grace. She was the last person anyone would expect to die alone. Joyce had never been short of boyfriends or suitors. Her presence left an indelible mark on those who knew her, making it even more unthinkable that she could be forgotten. Two of her former boyfriends, featured in the documentary Dreams of a Life, spoke of her with deep affection. They painted a picture of a woman who was unforgettable, someone whose life had touched theirs profoundly. How had someone so cherished, so admired, ended up dying in such isolation? Her story, sadly, is a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving. Despite her vibrant social life and career success, Joyce's later years were marked by a tragic withdrawal from those who once knew her well. The contrast between the lively, beloved woman she was and the lonely death she endured shocked and saddened everyone who heard her story. Joyce's life serves as a haunting example of how even those who seem to have it all can suffer in silence. Beneath Joyce Vincent's polished exterior lay hidden struggles that few were aware of. Despite her success and social circle, she faced personal battles that led to her increasing isolation. Friends recalled that she had fallen on hard times, and there were rumors of an abusive relationship. Joyce spent time in a battered women's shelter before moving into the council flat where she eventually died. This stark contrast from her earlier life was something her friends found hard to reconcile. The glamorous, ambitious Joyce they remembered seemed worlds apart from the woman who died alone in a modest flat. Her pride prevented her from reaching out. Joyce distanced herself from those who might have helped, perhaps not wanting to expose her vulnerabilities. This self-imposed isolation became her tragic undoing. An old friend recounted a poignant memory, spotting Joyce on the street, calling out to her, only to see her put her head down and walk away. It was a heartbreaking moment that underscored Joyce's determination to hide her struggles, even from those who cared about her. Her story is a powerful reminder of the importance of looking beyond the surface and recognizing the silent battles that many may face. It highlights the critical need for compassion and support for those who may be silently suffering. Joyce Vincent's story struck a chord with the public, sparking intense media coverage and discussions about urban loneliness. Headlines and reports captured the haunting details of her death, generating widespread empathy and outrage. Charities and advocacy groups seized the moment to highlight the broader issue of social isolation. Campaigns aimed at raising awareness about the importance of community and mental health support gained momentum, fueled by the emotional impact of Joyce's story. Public figures and commentators weighed in, debating the systemic factors that contributed to Joyce's tragic fate. Discussions ranged from the role of urban environments in fostering loneliness to the responsibilities of neighbors and friends in noticing signs of distress. Public figures and commentators debated the systemic issues contributing to her tragic end, urging for changes in how we support and connect with vulnerable individuals. Joyce's story became a catalyst for dialogue and action. Joyce Vincent's death, while tragic and deeply unsettling, ignited important conversations about loneliness and isolation. Her story prompted a wave of initiatives aimed at improving community support and mental health services. Her family and friends, although devastated, channeled their grief into advocacy, raising awareness about the need for stronger social connections and better support systems. Joyce's legacy lives on as a poignant reminder of the need for compassion and vigilance. Her story urges us to foster meaningful connections and ensure that no one is left alone and unnoticed. If Joyce's story moved you, please consider subscribing to our channel, sharing this video, and engaging with your community. Your support helps us continue to bring you stories that matter. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on loneliness and community support. Keep your eyes peeled for our next captivating tale. Together, we can make a difference.